With this picture, Four Brothers, my attraction to it was that it seemed like it was a Western. You know, the character of Bobby Mercer is the lone gunman who's been out in the wild for so long, and he's coming back to town to wreak justice and revenge. It just seems really like down home. It goes to the heart of what I think American filmmaking is about.
John and I were in sync pretty much from the beginning about the Western style and just not doing it in a hip-hop way or not doing... neither of us wanted to do a music video sort of style shooting. It's going to be classic, old-fashioned framing and big, big, big.
A lot of it is just wide shots. You're allowed to kind of choose who you want to look at and what you want to look at in the frame, as opposed to cuts and a lot of close-ups and kind of being dictated where you should look and when.
It's a lot of scenes of us walking up the street on the side of each other, all four of us just looking like John Wayne and the Wolf Pack.
Evelyn Mercer, the greatest mother four degenerate bastards ever had.
We're in a modern bar, you know, having a good time, and you can put that side by side with a saloon.
For me, you know, making movies is all about the adventure of it, and I just wanted to do something that would look totally different from anything I'd ever done.
John had done a lot of storyboards by the time I got on, so we would go through and he was well advanced in that storyboard process. And the storyboards were fantastic because it was instantly a way for me to get to know what John wanted to do.
It is in the cold, it is in the dead of winter. I'm actually using the winter as a kind of a surrogate character to, you know, help in different scenes.
Let's get the fuck out of here, man.
Dealing with the snow blindness and the whole thing of, you know, when you're in the snow and you can only see so far away. Different things like that. I was really intrigued by that when I read the script.
The weather was the greatest contributor to the look of the movie. Everything was like suppressed, like all the colors were suppressed and the light, the shadows were suppressed and everything was suppressed. And I think that was the key to shooting the movie at that time of year. That gave us the gritty look, really. We shot most of the film single camera, which is unusual these days. We'll probably run on normally like 2 or 3 cameras on a movie like this, but we shot most of it with 1 camera. So John, he would always say, shot specific. I want this shot for this part of the action.
The two of them have conspired in a great way to give this thing a really large movie feeling, but at the same time, it's a world you really acutely recognize.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that even though we shot in Toronto, that it would give a sense of the urban center of Detroit, you know what I mean? That, you know, the kind of grime and the interesting thing of what the Motor City has to offer. Detroit is known as the place where the Industrial Revolution was birthed and then died. And it's a perfect place to be like the modern Western motif, because a lot of those streets are like barren and dead, and, you know, it's like a ghost town in certain ways there. And so it was a perfect place to actually set Four Brothers.
In terms of locations, we tried to show a lot of variety. We tried to show that it wasn't just the hood and it wasn't just a middle class environment, you know, that there are a lot of different places to be found in Detroit.
A lot of it dealt with research, going to Detroit, bringing back ideas, creating the texture and the hard edge graininess of the city, and creating it here on soundstage, but then finding a location that was suitable that could also duplicate as Detroit, which was Hamilton, Ontario. We built the house. It took us maybe 6 weeks to physically lay out the house. But then with all the background, we have the backings. And we brought in a scenic to basically paint the backings of the neighborhood. We created the facade of the streets across from our house. So when there's a scene where we're doing a shootout today, when you look around, you see the houses across the street. We built the facade, all that within the 6-week time period. You know, it was wintertime that we were trying to create. So for me, is using autumn colors. So I use a lot of earth tone colors. I try to create that palette throughout Evelyn's house.
Wanted the house to have very warm tones, to be in contrast to what was going on outside.
Evelyn more or less tried to create this feeling that, you know, this was a home for the boys.
Evelyn basically would not change anything in her house, you know, from the life that she led. She's an old hippie, you know, she's a kind of flower child.
You see pictures of, she has a poster of Angela Davis, you know, and to me that was one of the icons of the women's movement.
The house is an extension of Evelyn's character, and those are the things that Keith and I talked about extensively.
Keith, our production designer, was able to create a very unique environment for where a gang would hang out.
That was a good location because that place had never been shot in before, and it was like, wow, it just seems like somewhere there were a bunch of kids would find some electricity and put it on and have a party there.
The gangsters that were in there just used it as a hangout spot, and then they would bring the girls in there and they would drink and, party and relax, but no one in their right mind would go in this building because it didn't look safe. When we went into that location, it was an old mall, one of the outdoor malls back at the time in Canada, in Hamilton. And it closed down, and it's been closed down for almost at least 20 years. So everything is just falling apart. But it had this architectural look to it. It had these arches that went through the hallways. So, for me, it was like, let me kind of create this feeling of a meat packing locker, Everything's hanging. So I decided to go with like this hanging plastic, and with all the hanging visual elements of the plastic with the layers on top of layers, you get this feeling of like, you don't know where you're going to in your next space.
Everything in this movie has to be really gritty. It has to be really aged. And, we really want to feel the turf. We want to feel the ground. We want to feel the texture of this picture. Here I have 4 brothers. You would think, jeans and t-shirts, how hard can that be? Well, usually, the easier it seems, the harder it is. And the harder it is because we want to bring some character and some interest to a very simple palette. From the script, when I read each character, we knew that Mark's character was this guy who moved away from Detroit and moved into Chicago, managed a strip club, worked on cars, pretty much was your everyman. We tried to take a very delicate approach to his costume because he is such a strong actor as well as personality. It didn't need a lot.
We just went through some different things and make sure that Mark looked good, and the same thing holds for all the other characters. Andre was a challenge for Ruth because Andre, he's really thin and you could put certain things on him and it looks like he's dressing up too much, you know what I mean? But we didn't want him to dress too much down. We had to find the right rhythm for him.
In thinking about his character and talking with him as well, my first consultation with Andre was over the phone. He said, I'm really not interested in being Andre 3000. I really want to be Jeremiah. And I like overalls, and I think he would wear a pair of overalls. When I worked with Tyrese, I decided that what would work for Angel's character would be if we made him a little bit more body conscious, a little bit more self-conscious.
Jack is a musician, and he's just a kind of a boho. He's just a happy-go-lucky kid, he's into punk and classic rock.
From what I understand about dressing the punk look, quote unquote, is it's creative. It's a creative process. It's not bought. Anytime I was working with Garrett's costume, I had a pair of scissors, a stud gun, a piece of chalk, a magic marker. It was a lot of fun, and that really sort of hones into each character and gives each character its own unique feel.
For Victor Sweet, I wanted him to be nasty, but really really kind of sophisticated nasty.
With Chewy, the Detroit look was important. African Americans in Detroit are known for dressing well. Alligator shoes, matching from head to toe. When I went to Detroit, a guy told me that this is the only place I know where you could actually rent a pair of alligator shoes to go with your outfit. It doesn't stop at that fitting, even though a lot is done, and they sometimes come back for 2 and 3 different fittings. As they start really working into their character, you have to take that journey with them because a lot is discovered along the way.
To me, it's a medium as a playground, as a designer, to go out here and play with these ideas and then make it happen, and then everybody kind of buys off on it. So it works.
I think it all came together very well. The movie looks good, it feels good, it has a certain rhythm and mood to it, and in retrospect, it was a really good experience.
Yo, Osama, get behind the register now! Did you hear what he said? It's America, homeboy. Black people don't get what they want in this country. Why should you? Please!
This revenge story turns out to be a really powerful writer's, not necessarily a device, it just gives you a lot of freedom as a writer. People understand it, it's simple, it's clear, it justifies a lot.
In general, Dave and I are a big fan of westerns, spaghetti westerns. I'm actually originally from England, and at the time that I grew up there, spaghetti westerns were very popular. They played all the time on television. We consider Four Brothers, in a way, a urban western.
Bobby Mercer for us was he's sort of the touchstone of the movie. He was the first place we jumped off in terms of storytelling. As a character, he's interesting for us because if you notice, he's pretty stripped down. He doesn't have a girlfriend, he doesn't have a job as far as we know. We don't talk about anything really other than his kind of single-minded purpose of avenging his mother's death.
Thanks for coming, Green. Mom would have been happy you made it to the service.
Shit, your mom would have been happy you made it back for her funeral.
Yeah, I ain't come back for no funeral.
No matter what Bobby was doing at any given time in the movie, it was always just taking one step closer to Victor Sweet. And that gave us something to, as writers to always kind of go back to. So we gave the love interest to his brother. We gave a lot of the comedy to the other guys as well. But he was pretty sincere and pretty straightforward character.
What's his name, Keenan?
Damien. It's my brother.
He's your brother? No shit, these are my brothers.
What we were conscious about was we wanted multi-race and multi-ethnicity or multi-nationality or whatever the proper words are, because we wanted to see that the dynamic as brotherhood was the same for everybody.
Yo, little brother, you asshole!
So we tried to write them very race neutral and age neutral, and so they come off similar, hopefully, in the way that brothers are. It might have been a more obvious choice to make the brothers more distinct and more different in their voices, but one thing that we wanted to do was make sure that their mom had a strong influence on them.
And they also, having grown up in the same household, they wouldn't obviously have to be so PC around each other.
Yeah, we thought it gave us sort of permission to write a little bit more honest dialogue than if it was, friends or if it was strangers.
Jack likes ass crack and ball sack.
Jack doesn't like ass crack and ball sack. Jack likes boobs.
In creating the brothers' characters, we knew that we had to make them likable, because essentially the type of things that they would be doing would be very violent.
I felt that the most important things were the emotional ties that the characters were making to each other. I felt that those are the most important things to really show in the film, and that's what I really wanted to work hard on with the writers. And the first thing that I talked to them about was the fact that even though Ellen was not a presence in the film, she had to be present in the lives of the characters of the film. And the audience had to really feel this woman, who she was and what was so special about her throughout the course of the adventure that these guys go on.
Pretty much the day we were ready to write Fade In, my grandma died. And Dave and I flew back to England for the funeral, and we got to her house, and she'd only died the day before. And so some of the brothers coming home in the movie, seeing the half-open novel on the side table and the open milk in the refrigerator, stuff we pulled directly from staying at my grandma's house, and we actually wrote the whole rough first draft in 2 weeks when we stayed there. So that definitely affected the tone of the piece and made us take the mourning period of the brothers a little more seriously.
Too weird in Mom's room? Oh man, way too weird. It's crazy. I mean, everything's exactly the same. She didn't change nothing in this house.
And we did a minor polish for John when he first came on board, and he actually helped us bring back one of the elements that we left out of the first draft, the brothers seeing visions of the mother around the table.
And the scene at the dinner table where each of the brothers has their own specific memory of Evelyn. You'll notice in that scene that every time we cut to her, she's wearing something different because they all have different memories of her.
I know bad things happened to you before you came to me. Hey, look at me. But you're safe now.
That was a really interesting idea because it allowed us to sort of get at the core dynamic between each of these boys and their mother, watching them as men, and as men, in a way, responding to her as if they were the children that when she first adopted them.
When it comes to Bobby's point, he doesn't see her there because he can't necessarily accept the fact that she's gone yet.
So after he's done everything he needed to do,
then he's ready to be able to come to terms with what's happened to his mother.
And he sees Mom for the first time at the very end. And I thought that really was a nice way to begin and end on her.
The scenes I really identify with the most are the emotional ones. Bobby's going into his mother's room and he sees her jewelry. You know, he's basically going into the space that he's been in before, and then he goes in the bathroom and breaks down and cries. And I think that that's really important because, you know, you need that moment for that character, because all the things that he does in the film after that are so brutal. You know, I mean, that informs us from the place where all this brutality is coming from a whole lot of pain and hurt.
There's a crucial day or two when they first arrive back, and then Thanksgiving Day, it's like they take a holiday off of their vengeance. And then after that, that's straight relentless action and drive.
Yeah.
So we knew that those days, the hockey game, when they're at the house, those moments were going to be crucial.
That's essentially the whole first act, is getting to know the brothers.
Let's go get a real drink.
So in writing an action sequence for a script, essentially when you're writing the draft, you're writing for the reader, you're writing for the studio. And so the action has to come off the page. You can't shorthand any of the action because maybe perhaps later on the director will do it, his or her own way. So it has to work. And inside a sequence, we like to think of it as a story. You should have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
In this particular case, the shootout of the Mercer household was probably the biggest, that and the car chase are the two big action scenes, because we don't end with a massive climactic battle. We actually end with a hockey fist fight.
Paid him, Jerry. You got in bed with him, didn't you?
No, I didn't pay him. That's how they fucking shut me down.
Wait, I thought the city cut you off, Jerry.
Douglas, come on, man. This is Detroit. Sweet Homes Douglas. He ain't nothing but...
We knew that, for example, that Jack was going to die. So we began with the doorbell ringing. We placed it during the major argument between the brothers, so it picks up from the climax of the brothers arguing.
And we wanted to give each of the brothers their own separate moment in the sequence.
Jack was baited out into the street. If Bobby would not have been so savvy and street smart, then they all would have been pulled out into the street and killed immediately. He's got like a sixth sense for the street, and he picks up immediately that it's not a good idea that Jack's running out right now. And so he comes out with his gun already and catches the shooters off guard. Basically, they were expecting it to be a slaughter.
The guys win and prevail because they're scared, not because they're badass. They're in the middle of a war right then and there. Jeremiah tries to run because he sees his wife, and he thinks about his wife and his kids and everything, and then that allows him to go into action.
Later on he comes back and smashes into the other car and saves the day.
And that's his actual turning point as a character, where you realize that he had an opportunity to run and he didn't, and now from that point forward he's fully invested in the story and in the revenge plot.
And then Angel's the savvy character, so he goes upstairs, gets a better vantage point, shoots out one of the windows to draw the guns away from his brothers, and goes into the other room and fires on the killers.
So it was kind of nice because he's also a Marine, so he would be the one who would know the high ground, the idea that you shoot from above is your sniper's perch. My favorite thing that was actually left out was Angel picks Sophie up in the draft, and he drags her upstairs with him and pushes her into the metal bathtub. And you hear her hiding, and you hear bullets hitting the bathtub while she's hiding in there. So I always liked that he was looking out, again, sticking in with his character and trying to, even though it's a chaotic action scene, keeping with his character. I thought it was a nice way for us to show, even in the heat of all the battle, he's still looking out for his girl. We wanted to be clear that the guys really were going to kill the people who killed their mother. They weren't going to get him and twist their arm or give him a noogie or anything. They were going to kill him. And if they would have said no, they can't, then I'm not sure how the movie would have worked, because they would have been the toughest guys in history who didn't use violence as a way of self-expression.
Well, in real life, there is no justification for violence, but in movie world, violence can kind of be a cathartic thing.
You killed my mother and my little brother, you motherfucker. Thank Victor Sweet.
My favorite moment in the film is when Bobby Mercer appears on the horizon, like the iconic Western figure.
The fist fight at the end, the fact that it's really a hockey fight, their boots are slipping in. Paul suggested that Victor Sweet's men not only watch but start cheering and cheering them on. Is a real point that scene made sense to me, where it becomes like, it fits Bobby's backstory, and it really just feels like exciting, and it's as much about the story as it is about the actual punches. It also is vicarious for the audience, feels like cheering, and it wraps up that the story really, really well.
David and Paul just did a great job writing great characters. The idea of doing a movie about brothers is just, we don't seem to do that many in Hollywood, so why not?
It goes without saying that I absolutely love all four brothers. I mean, the luck that we had in having those four guys so perfectly represent what we wanted was truly uncanny and extraordinary.
One of the main themes of the picture is the theme of brotherhood, and it's the theme of friendship and a bond between these men. And they're not even bonded by blood, they're just bonded by brotherhood. I got involved with Four Brothers because my friend Lorenzo de Bonaventura called me. He said he had a script that was really, really cool and that he wanted me to read.
There are several things John brings to the table, but the thing that was most important for this project was the thing that I think John does maybe the best of what John does, is understanding how males communicate or can't communicate with one another.
You're full of shit, man. You can smell that ass from down the street, huh?
What are you talking about?
What do you mean, what? Come on, what, man? You know exactly what we talking about with La Vida Loca.
Ain't nobody going to go get no La Vida Loca nothing.
She got a boyfriend.
I was very excited when John came on board. We'd always talked about working together. But he knows this world. And I think he's the right guy to kind of balance out the edge, the emotion, the humor.
When it's time to focus, he wants you focused. When it's time to play, we can have all the fun in the world.
He's about the characters. It's like it's only so many stories, but the characters pretty much move the story.
John read the second draft of the script. He came in and he immediately understood what the soul of the movie was, which was Mom. And the challenge of having a real chemistry between four disparate actors.
Four guys that would be very interesting to watch on film, but that also can interact with each other and be believable as brothers. The Mercer brothers are just these guys, and they have a reputation for being kind of dangerous and real edgy. They're led by Bobby. Bobby's kind of a big kid. He's an obnoxious older brother to everybody. He's always, ribbing Jack and busting the chops at his other brothers.
Hey, Jack, man, I'm only kidding. He's just tough love, you know what I mean? I mean, that's how I grew up. My brothers would always beat me up, but they always, protected me. If anybody else tried to beat me up, they'd kill him. That's kind of how Bobby is. You got to kind of earn your keep as a man.
The positions that everybody is in make sense personally as well as in the characters. No one has done more films than Mark, so if he's the older brother in the movie, outside of us looking up to him as being the older, we're actually looking up to him as being the one with the most experience too.
He's a great motivator. We have these little pep talks, and he tells us about when he first started, And it's crazy because three of us came out of the music, genre.
The thing about Wahlberg as an actor is that Mark is from the streets, He had a really, really, hard past before he came into acting and before he, went into entertainment. So he's just he's got a real earthy quality.
You can't really be too standoffish or too protected here. You got to kind of let your guard down. That's what this is about, and showing the emotion and the vulnerability. When in a situation like this, I think is what's really going to kind of grab the audience and bring them along for the ride. Why are you acting like such a bitch, Jerry?
Oh, okay. So what, y'all just gonna shoot up the whole town because y'all mad?
Why not?
Come on, man.
Andre 3000 is in this picture because he and I have known each other for over 10 years, and he's always been interested in acting. And when the opportunity came up to cast Jeremiah, I wanted to find somebody who could be more centered guy, really interesting without having to do very much. And the camera really loves Andre's face.
For certain songs, you have to open yourself up to certain emotions. So if he listens to a song and knows that I had to go a certain place to get there, he's probably thinking, well, I think this person can get to this place where I need this character to go.
Andre is very passionate about what he's doing. He's sincere and he's focused, and I think those are a lot of the characteristics of Jeremiah as well.
It's a big challenge for Andre, and I love how he approaches it. He's not bringing any baggage from the music world. He's not rolling with an entourage. He's come to work and to learn and to grow as an actor.
When you make a transition from music and you jump into acting, then people come in to see you and your work, and they're supportive, but they're coming in with doubts automatically of how terrible somebody is more than likely going to be. And Troy is going to catch people off guard with his performance in this movie.
Wait, Green, how do you go from
petty thug to contract killer. And if they were professional shooters, like you say, they'd have never told us who they was working with anyway. Even if they got one hell of an ass whooping.
Angel, who's kind of like a quiet, brooding type guy who's kind of a hustler. He's a lover, he's a fighter. You know, he's a lot of different things, and he's played by Tyrese.
Tyrese is so charismatic.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
He has one of the most infectious smiles I've run into. The challenge for him has been that Angel is a character who doesn't smile a lot, who is more internal. And I think, you know, it's one of the things he and John were intrigued about for him in that role is that it's, as an actor, it's pushing him in a different direction than he's been in.
I love John. He's changed me as a man as well as an actor. He told me, I see something in you that you don't see in yourself. You know, as far as your acting and your personality.
He brings a whole lot of fun to the set, working with him. He's a real cool, up-and-coming actor.
I know it's difficult to deal with mundane financial matters while your heart still grieves for a loved one.
How much do we get? Jack, he's misunderstood. And, you know, his intelligence is, you know, underestimated. And he's not being accepted.
This is Gareth's third film. He did Troy and Friday Night Lights. He's the light of the movie, you know, I think. And he's a great young actor, man. This kid, he can do no wrong.
Garrett is very impressive because he don't have a conscience as far as his acting. He do what he need to do to make himself cry. And he don't care who's looking at him, who's watching, whatever. He'll do whatever he got to do to stay in character.
Jack drinks, Jack
That's your brother. Jack likes ass crack and ball sack.
Jack doesn't like ass crack and ball sack. Jack likes boobs. Jack cuts fans.
Having three guys who are very well known for different reasons, and then you're the fourth guy who's not that well known, has to be slightly intimidating, although Garrett's not that easy to intimidate. But Mark really reached out and made sure that he was taking care of his little brother.
We started out, you know, being gentle, you know, when giving each other shit. And then, of course, the more we got to know each other, the more comfortable we felt, the more we pushed those buttons.
We've fallen into that whole brotherly thing. Me and Tyrese, we fool around all the time like he is my younger brother.
Oh, Dre, you did such a great job.
There's definitely the one-up competition. Every day, you know, everybody comes to send. I know who you are. I know who you look like.
Man, you look like a cheetah pet with just the mud on it. Oh, eat it.
When you're in a situation where everybody's still hanging out with each other than when John Singleton holler action, you know, that's when you got something.
We took them out and gave them skates and got them some hockey equipment and started making them play hockey. And that was kind of like the way that they bonded. I was playing along with them.
Let's go. Bobby passes the ball to Angel, and then he scores a goal on me, and I'm the goal.
So when the camera start rolling, you're gonna get nervous.
Oh, man.
You're gonna bust your ass.
I'm not gonna bust.
Let's bet.
If I bust my ass, then it's good.
Marker. And Mark, you can swing away.
Get him, go! Yo, everybody in the hood, see this. Everybody in the hood. Everybody at the barbershop, see this. He bust his ass.
What I think this movie has to offer to the audience is that you should never underestimate the power of brotherhood.
I just really believe the idea of four brothers that are not the same nationality, it just moved me.
It's a very emotional story. You really get a sense that we are brothers, that we've been around for a long time.
This is like one of those Saturday night special movies, you know. You have a good time and cheer the screen on, and in this case, you know, watch it over and over again and enjoy it, you know, for what it is. The bad guys attacked the Mercer house, but we knew we wanted to make it a spectacular, realistic action scene. There was nothing slick and pretty about it. You know, we just really wanted to make it look, you know, as combustible as we could.
I've done a lot of gunfights in different movies, but I've never done one the way John Singleton wanted to do it. It was really cool to do something different.
The storyboards were really extravagant. They were really like over the top, which was great. I mean, I would have loved to have been able to give them that, but because of time restraint, budget restraint and all that, we were trying to come to sort of a middle ground with John Singleton to give him what he needed to make the sequence work.
I was going for a certain rhythm of it. You know, I just didn't want to just like bam, 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 bam to the whole time. There's ebbs and flows and cadences in the action scene.
There were a lot of intricate pieces to put together to make that all work as a sequence.
What we've done is the lead-in to taking the actor's character, Bob, Mark Wahlberg, back into the house. There's snow hits across over here, which will go off as he's running up towards the house. And as he just about hits the top of the stairs, we've got over 450 bullet hits, all embedded into the front of the building. Those will go off in about 3.5 seconds, raking across the front of the porch. Yeah, these are our firing boxes that are tied together for a system that once the system starts, it races through the entire sequence at the speed that we set it at. As you can see over here, the entire wall is loaded except for the brick.
There will be gunfire!
On the exterior of the real location and the exterior of the porch at the studio, I believe we shot about 1,200 bullet hits off in that exterior shootout when machine guns were firing at the house. Then we moved inside the house, and there was approximately 300 to 400 inside. About 150 Zerk and dust shots as well, air gun balls that we're shooting. But all of those, again, were just sequenced pieces that we were able to put together, working through the scenes with John while he was shooting.
Every shot in that sequence is all handheld, and it's kind of erratic.
It was probably in the beginning a little tricky for the actors because it was non-traditional movie master angle, so we all knew where everything went. We always had to go back to the storyboards, and John had mapped it all out, and we just would step our way through.
Our stunt coordinator was John Stoneham, Stoney as we call him, and he really worked hard to make sure that, you know, the actors, first of all, were safe.
Really trying to make me pay my dues, ain't you there, Junior?
We had several scenes where the guys had to, you know, run off the roofs and jump and roll in the snow and do all these different things, and it's like, it's rigorous, you know, physical work, you know, in the best conditions, but, you know, as cold as it was like, it was hard to do.
Mark Wahlberg was great doing a lot of his own things. He was a real trooper. He hung in there with all that glass falling down on him and all the bullet hits going off around him. We were very clear, though, on being very specific about his safety and making sure that his eyes were protected and that, but he was right in the middle there, breathing all the dust just like the rest of us. So that made it a lot better in a lot of ways, that we could actually have his face right in the middle of all this going on. The word impossible is tough because, you know what, how do you say no? And it's part of what I do is I try my best to give a director what he's trying to get. If I can't give him exactly what he's after, I'll try and give him something that's close.
It took a long time and a lot of planning, a lot of pre-planning, and to his credit, Neil pulled it off.
Now we can pull that out when we need to.
Nobody got hurt, so I think it was a great project, and I think it was a good job.